if somebody asked me, hey, dude, tell me about glam metal or hair metal, the first thing I would say is I'd just say here, look at Poison.
Sammy's not Van Halen, David Lee Roth rules, blah, 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 blah.
In a way, I'm like, holy shit, Judas Priest is trying to rip my balls off.
This is like the perfect Stephen Pearcy album.
Fucking song, To Hell with the Devil, fucking rips.
Priest Turbo isn't exactly the most manly version of Priest.
Any song on this album except for Social Disease sucks.
And I don't give a shit that I'm talking about the look before I talk about the music because it's important here.
I was also like, what the fuck are you doing? Everybody's hair metal now.
His voice, like I said, he could sing the phone book and I'd be down.
Look at me using fucking big words like obligatory.
Especially the stuff on Prisoners in Paradise. I think shits on Carrie.
Technically, I always thought Cece was the hot one.
David Coverdale knocked on Sarzo and Aldridge's door and they went, see ya.
Let's be honest. No offense, Jamie St. James, but he wasn't exactly the pinup lead singer.
I still chose Brett though. I don't think CC, just the facial features didn't quite do it for me.
Hold on. Ridley wants to make an appearance because you're very naughty.
So I don't know what's wrong with me, but I love it.
I get so hot I see steam. Oh, fuck, man. Look, I came here to do two things: chew bubblegum and talk hair metal. And it looks like I'm almost out of bubblegum. Welcome to the Hair Metal Guru. My name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. And today, man, this is a year that I bet a lot of you have been waiting for because it is 1986. And I consider 1986 to be the year that hair metal really exploded. I mean, it had been happening before, but now you get some of the heavy hitters that caused record companies to go fucking bananas. And who better to talk about such an epic year than my good buddy Ryan? Ryan, welcome back to the show.
All right. Thanks, man. I couldn't agree more, man. Like 1986 to me was the year that everybody went glam just for that reason. You got Wasp, Priest, Quiet Riot, Crocus, Ingve. You had Twisted Sister. It was kind of weird to say they were more of like a cross-dresser glam in
Yeah.
the early days, and then they became like very light glam. And why not? You had Motley's Image from a year prior. You
Yep.
had Poison coming out.
Yep.
You had Bon Jovi doing the poodle thing, and
Yep.
like you said, all the record companies went wild. It's a
Yep.
very soft year, if you know what I mean. Like 85 and 87 were both kind of like gruff years. 86 was a very soft year, and it showed in the looks of all these guys.
Right. And you start to notice because it explodes this year, but by 88, 89, that's when we get so many fucking albums
Yeah.
because every record label was like, I need the next Bon Jovi, I need the next Poison. So it's an epic year. And we're gonna go through our top 10 releases of the year. So before we do that, I'll show, and it's kind of apropos, something that might show apropos. That's a good word for all you people trying to learn English.
Learn
Um,
how to spell it.
a 1986 Poison Look What the Cat Dragged In album flat. And I mentioned on my last episode uh, that, with some bands, they were glamming it up and they, but you knew they were dudes. Like Cinderella was glam, but you knew they were dudes. Poison, it was a little bit iffy, I mean, and I always thought Cece was the hot one, at least on the Look What the Cat Dragged In cover. So some vintage Poison for you. And before we get going, hey, if you're into this stuff, would love it if you subscribe, like, comment, all that shit. You have the option to be a member, and I'll be honest, my goal is to one day turn this into something that I can do more, maybe not full time, but actually, make a little bit of a living doing it. I love doing this, I love talking about this. So, whatever you can do to support the channel, hey, I'm just glad that you're here. So, with that, we each have 10 albums from 1986, an epic year. Ryan, I'm going to let you start off the show, but I feel like you're going to steal some of my thunder at some point. So go ahead.
Okay, I won't do the one that I assume you're going to talk about. I'll just do one of my cheaters, okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to start with a 10.1. It was my 10.2. and throw out, if there's Crocus fans out there that have never heard or didn't pay attention to the song called "Lay Me Down" on the live Alive and Screamin' album from 1986. It was the direction that Crocus should have gone versus their Change of Address album, which pretty much tanked their career. "Lay Me Down" is a ripper that was never recorded in the studio. It was only performed live, and it's amazing. So that's my 10.1/2. But my real number 10, I'm going Yngwie Malmsteen doing Trilogy, okay? So I'm kicking it off with a known shredder. This was Yngwie. He was definitely a toned down, more melodic version than the prior two albums. It went platinum. It got him on a global scale, even though the first two were really good. I really like those. They were equally killer. Those had Jeff Scott Soto, who's awesome, but this has Mark Bowles. This pretty much kicks off like the great Yngwie run for me of more of like a pop metal melodic stuff versus the hard like neoclassical speed metal, or not metal, just speed guitar. Check out Queen in Love. You Don't Remember, I'll Never Forget. And my personal favorite is a song called Fire, and it's a sign of things to come for what Yngwie is going to deliver in the next like 2 or 3 albums.
Okay. Okay. And I'm not a guy that has I haven't ventured into Ingve much. I don't know much except what's been on the radio. And like I've always said, I'm not into the
Yeah.
shredding stuff. So, but I liked, when he had Joe Lynn. What was the big hit with Joe Lynn Turner on vocals?
Heaven Tonight.
Heaven Tonight. So like I liked that stuff, but I haven't ventured in. So who did you say was on vocals on this one?
Mark Bowles, and
Okay.
he went on to do a bunch of other things in life. Came back to a band called Billionaire Boys Club in like the early '90s, which is
Okay.
also pretty damn good.
Sure.
But yeah, he was a one and done with
Sure.
Ingve. Usually the singers made it at least 2 albums.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna check out those songs that you recommended. They better not suck.
They
So
don't.
no, I'm just kidding. All right. Good, good. No, number 10 for all you Ingve fans. Okay, here's my 10.1. I've yet to do this. And tell me if it's the one that you were gonna do. But AC/DC put out an album in 19, and it wasn't a full album. It was the soundtrack to the movie Maximum Overdrive, which was a Stephen King book. I'll be honest, and I love Stephen King. That movie wasn't, I didn't think it was all that. I probably liked it back in the day. If you watch it now, it's a shit show.
Yeah.
So, but man, I have to put Who Made Who on for the title track alone.
Oh
One of
yeah.
my favorite AC/DC songs of all time is the song Who Made Who.
Yeah.
So that's my
Very
10.1.
good.
Was
That
that your
it was absolutely. I respect it. And full disclosure, the 1986 topic was my very first podcast I ever did with Metal Mike on the
ah,
80s Glam Metal Cast. And in my young and innocent days then, I had Who Made Who and Crocus Alive and Screaming as a featured
right,
number in the top 10 list.
right.
And I was like, oh, these bands are so killer. I have to talk about them. But this
Yeah,
time I thought, you know what? I think my tastes have differed a little bit. Not straight
sure.
from AC/DC or Crocus, but I'm going
Right,
to feature some others.
right. And Who Made Who would have made my top 10 had, I mean, but most of those songs had been released before. I mean, so,
Yeah.
it
Well,
was
also,
so,
like, on the lightening up look, like we talked about at the beginning,
yep.
even Brian Johnson went, like, light denims, and Angus's hair was really long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
by no means were they ever hair.
No,
I get it,
no.
but, like, from the, like, Brian Johnson black tank top of the latter what's to come, and then, like, the number 22 football jersey and,
Yep.
like, and, like, the Harley Davidson stuff, to that, it was like even AC/DC's going mid-80s on us a little bit.
Yes, venturing more into the straight up 80s hard rock kind of
Yeah,
look and exploring that sound as well, yes.
yeah.
Okay. So, all right, now on to my real number 10.
Mhm.
And I've had a lot of people message me about this band and they're like, "Dude, you got to cover Great White more, I'm never mentioned. I mentioned them in our recent episode, which is
Yeah.
actually about to be published tomorrow. It is today, Tuesday, the 25th of June. So they did get mentioned in our 96 to 2000. But I've never, I didn't talk about Twice Shy, Hooked, Psycho City, or Once Bitten. And I am a Great White fan, but I've also told people I'm not a big blues guy, and later Great White was venturing more into blues. They were still very cool hard rock. I like those albums, but they were a little bit more blues
Yeah.
inspired, whereas earlier Great White was a little more straight ahead rock. Now
Mhm.
their 86 album Shot in the Dark, I feel like was where they started to see that blues was going to be their future, because there is some of that just straight ahead rock, and then there's some blues influence in Shot in the Dark. And I know like Mark Kendall, and I follow him on X, and he said it took us a while, and it took me a while to figure out where I wanted to go as a guitar player. He loves that blues stuff. So anyway, but Shot in the Dark has some great straight up rock. It has some of that blues influence if you're into that. Um,
Yep.
but uh, She Shakes Me, straight up just ass kicking hard rock song. The song Face the Day is
Mhm.
is actually a cover by a
Oh,
band called The Angels, who are from Australia, and I fucking love them. And when you hear rock band Australia, they are definitely influenced by AC/DC, The Angels. Okay, but Face the Day is a great song. And then actually the third song I'm gonna list is another cover, Give Me Some Lovin'. And if you remember, it's a 60s song by the Spencer Davis Group.
oh, yeah.
Hey, so but Great White makes it their own.
Huh.
Really cool cover. I think there was only 8 songs on this album. And so I love, again, the straight ahead hard rock stuff. You see the blues coming in, but those 3 songs are awesome. When they do covers, they make them their own. Comes in at number 10.
That's cool, dude. I go back and forth a lot with Great White. Like, they are a little bit too bluesy for me,
Yep.
especially, like, the Hooked album and stuff.
Yep.
Um, but if I could, like, make one compilation out of, like, the real hard hitting stuff from all
Yes.
their stuff that wasn't too bluesy, they'd be up
Yes.
there in my ranking.
Yeah.
But this is one album, like you're saying, they were right right on the brink. So
Yep.
I really like this album a lot because they weren't too bluesy, and they sounded great being more metal.
Yes. And when we get past 86, I'm guessing that I'm gonna have some of their shit show up and they'll be higher, because I loved some of that, or some of those earlier albums, the
Yeah,
self-titled for sure. And now there's another one, I can't remember the name of it,
yeah,
but straight ahead hard rock, though that's where my Great White Groove really gets going. So,
nice.
all right, with that, let's go on to your number 9.
Okay. So this is a band, it's an acronym, it's MARS, McAlpine, Aldridge, Rock of Bob Rock, and Rudy Sarzo. So it's Project Driver. So it was like a 1986 supergroup that never took off. And it's because Whitesnake came calling. And David Coverdale knocked on Sarzo and Aldridge's door,
Yep.
and they went, see ya.
Yep.
And I don't blame them. But really killer, super vocalist, Bob Rock, the Octopus, Tommy Aldridge. The Ripper on guitar was Tony McAlpine, who went on to play in his own stuff, and then everyone's favorite bassist, Rudy Sarzo. So heavy, hard hitting metal. It bordered on like almost a maidenish style speed metal, but it was like just enough melodic metal to keep me really interested. Um, Crank the song "Fantasy" if you don't know this album, and I promise you, you'll be hooked. It's in the it's in the harder realm, but it's still got that melodic sense. And that Bob Rock, he's been like this sneaky vocalist on several, like Impellitteri, Axel Rudy Pell, it's probably some others. But anyway, super killer.
When you say Bob Rock,
Not the Bob Rock, not the producer.
okay, and
Yeah,
And Bob
And
Rock has done albums. He had an album
exactly.
called
Yeah,
Rockhead.
he's gone
Yeah.
by Rob and Robert and Bob. I think it's Bob on this one.
Okay.
But yeah, totally different guy. But yeah,
Okay.
Rockhead, I do have that, and it never really thrilled me.
Yeah.
But but
Yeah.
yeah, Mars. So it was like an early super group that never took off, but very cool. It's got a like an Indy car, cartoon Indy car illustrated on the cover.
I remember, seeing stuff in music magazines for that, and I still flip through all my music magazines from time to time, so
Yeah,
I'll see that, but yeah, Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge go on to join Whitesnake,
yeah,
for the '87 tour,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
because they weren't part of the band until
Correct.
the tour came. Yeah, I mean, those guys are shit. ev- Everybody wants them in their band for some
Yeah,
reason, or not, I
yeah,
mean,
totally.
for obvious reasons, but okay. So I've heard about that, but I've I don't think I've ever listened to it. So
Yeah, it's cool, and like, again, the great thing about this genre, you could go Mars, you can go Racer X, you can go Maiden, and then you could go Poison and Rat, and it's like it's all good to me. And I only have a couple random ones on this topic of 1986, and
yeah,
being Mars in my next one. Everything else, unlike my normal shenanigans, is straightforward shit that everybody knows about.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. You're always really good at throwing me for some fucking loops that I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? So okay, awesome. My number nine. Here's a band that I've always wanted to talk about. Finally get my chance, and it's Black and Blue with their album Nasty Nasty, produced by Gene Simmons. Tommy Thayer's in the band, who later goes on to fame playing for Kiss. Jamie St. James on vocals, who did a stint with Warrant, released an album with Warrant called Born Again. I thought it sucked. No offense, Jamie, but that was not my and so I love Black and Blue, and I'll just off on a tangent. Jamie St. James never fit with Warrant.
Right.
Robert Mason's a lot better with. But anyway, so Nasty Nasty, produced by Gene Simmons. And it was like everybody kept expecting Black and Blue to take off at some point. It was always like, okay, the next album. And this was an album where I think they really expected to blow up because they got Jonathan Cain from Journey to come in and help them write a ballad. And it's a really cool ballad. And you can tell they're like, okay, we got to come up with something because damn it, we're running out of chances. Anyway, this album doesn't explode, but it's a solid, solid album. The title and man, Tommy Thayer, there's some kick-ass guitar riffs on this album. The title track, Nasty Nasty, I Want It All. They were kind of going for that Queen shit, kind of a Queen sound to it. 12 o'clock high is really cool. And then I think some people might think this ballad's kind of cheesy. It's really keyboard inspired, but it's called I'll Be There For You. But
Yeah.
I like Journey ballads. I love the song Faithfully, Open Arms. Jonathan Cain can write the shit out of a sappy love song. So I'll Be There For You, I thought was a cool ballad. Album didn't do that great, but I think it's super solid. Comes in at number nine.
Three things. I had it on the list and I booted it, and it was due to the fact that the production wasn't there for me.
Yep.
And this is the Black and Blue album I know the best.
Yep.
I remember I bought the LP and I taped it and I knew all the songs,
Yep.
and so I totally know it hands down. The other was I'll Be There For You. That was the yeah, I'll Be There For You. Yeah.
Yep. That's the ballad. Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of
I
ballad.
remember reading one day that they wanted nothing to do with that, and especially, like, the way they looked
Mhm.
in the video, um, so that's kinda odd, and it was, like, the featured song, you know what I
Yep.
mean? But then, like, the other thing is, it's so crazy that, like, Hold On to 18 was such a massive production, and it sounded so huge and thick and killer and Jovi-esque in '84, and I
Yep.
remember something about that too, like, the timing wasn't quite right, and, like, Rat kinda, like, just snuck in underneath them ahead of theirs and kind of anyway. So I think they just suffered some bad luck, but I mean, great album, dude. I
Yeah.
love that choice.
So this will be random, but speaking of albums that suffered because of production, one of the albums that didn't make it onto my list, though I kept trying to find a way to put it on there, was Killer Dwarfs with Stand Tall.
Oh yeah.
I love the song Keep the Spirit Alive, but I was listening to it today going, okay, am I going to put this on the list? But it just, the production sounds like they didn't, I don't know, they didn't mix it right. It just sounds kind of tinny. And
Hmm.
so anyway, yes, there are albums that are really freaking good where you can tell the songs are good. Early Kiss is another good example, but production can make it just
I
so
know.
didn't make the list, and maybe that's so. But anyway, Black and Blue, Nasty Nasty, my number 9.
Well, maybe it's Jamie St. James because Born Again also has shit production.
Yeah,
You know, like that album is staying in its warrant lane of like straight ahead hard rock, but it
right.
ain't Janie, and
No.
the production sucks and the
Yeah.
video sucks. Anyway, so
Oh yeah. And let's be honest, no offense, Jamie St. James, but he wasn't exactly the pinup lead singer that everybody was looking for. And I'm not, but we're starting to get you John Bon Jovi, Brett Michaels,
oh yeah,
and it's unfortunate that that became almost a requirement in the 80s because Jamie St. James is a solid vocalist, but he
mhm.
wasn't really they weren't going to ask him to be in Playgirl anytime soon. So, all right, let's go on to your number 8.
Okay. So this is a band called Fate, Fate, and the album is called A Matter of Attitude. They're a Danish band. They have 4 albums from 86 to 90. Very pop metal, very keyboard touch, very distinct vocals. It's kind of funny, like English is a second language when you hear the lyrics and like the way, like the cliche surrounding most of it. But it's cool. It's like they're they're trying to be as LA as they can while probably knowing nothing of the language and recording their album in the United States for the first time. So, but it's killer, solid riffs, great guitar tone. Check out the song "Summer Love." It's a lot like Lillian Axe's "Poetic Justice" album.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know why it kind of reminds me of like "She's My Salvation," which is like one of my favorite riffs of all time.
Right.
The guitar tone and the way he kind of plays it, it always reminded me of that. So it really kind of clicked with me. But it's just like a real happy 80s Euro era, not influenced by that much US meddling around. So Fate, you will not be disappointed if those that have not heard of them or have but not paid attention. Their first 4 you can play through and you'll be stoked that you got into them.
I have never fucking heard of that band.
Dude,
Maybe I've skimmed by it, but
yeah.
when you say it right now, my mind draws a blank.
It was a late discovery, probably within the last 4 or 5 years for me.
Right.
So late in my the grand scheme, but, definitely worth it. Like,
Okay.
play every album and you'll be stoked.
Okay. All right. Fucking okay. You're the hair metal guru. I'm the hair metal fucking don't know shit because I don't know what Fate is.
I'm telling you, there could be 2 of us.
All right. That's a good point. Good point. But I'm number 1. You're number 2.
Number 2.
Okay. Good call. All right. My number 8. So now I'm gonna get into the poppier. Usually you're the one who kind of, ventures into the poppier side, the heavy keyboards, the House of Lords stuff. I really like that stuff, but I think I lean more towards the sleazier, harder side of life. But I do like that shit. And in 1986, the band, hopefully I pronounce it right, Giuffria, I would say Giuffria. Some people say Giuffria,
Right.
whatever it is, um, came out with the album Silk and Steel. And I, shit, it's poppy, it's keyboardy, but fuck, you got David Glenn Isley. I just always thought that this is a vocalist that deserved to explode at some time. he was in so many different, he was in Jafria, he was in fucking what was that band?
Dirty White Boy?
Dirty White Boy.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's done shit. He was he was the voice of rock and roll SpongeBob when
Oh,
fucking balloons agree. When SpongeBob sang at like halftime of the Super Bowl, it was David Glenn Isley's voice. So love his voice. And Greg Giuffria from the band Angel is the band's namesake, the keyboard
mhm.
player. So very poppy. They had a pretty big hit with I Must Be Dreaming. And now I'm dying. But I love that song. It's got a really kick-ass guitar riff. Um, Catchy as shit. I mean, I remember loving this, I still love hearing it, and as a kid, I must have been, 13 in 1986. Damn, this was a song that just drew me in. I think it was the only hit from the album. There's some other, you know, you were they were all about love songs and not always ballads. Love You Forever was kind of a slow song, but Girl was a more up-tempo rock song. Radio was a really kick-ass rock song.
Yeah.
So they put out 2 or 3 albums, and they'd always have like a minor hit on the album, but it just never did what I think the record company thought it was going to do because they had all the elements, you know, this perfect vocalist, this keyboard heavy, melodic 80s rock. It just never reached the stage where it was everybody knew who they were, but a really solid, fun band. They come in at number 8.
That's cool, dude, and even for me, they're a little light, and I love that kinda shit, you know what I mean? Like, I've always really I always couple them with FM, that band FM,
Right?
which also had, like, a pseudo hit with a keyboardy ballad, and, like, what was it? Call to the Heart was the Jafria
Call to the Heart
one?
was on the next album that became a hit or on
I
one of
see.
yes.
Yeah, and then, like, I think yeah, like, David Glenn Eisley, he was supposed to be in James Christian's spot in House of Lords, and I don't know what
Yes.
happened, but
Yes, neither do
maybe
I.
it was Gene Simmons that said, "Nah, this guy's whatever." And then
Right.
I think he was also a ball player, so that also made me stoked because he was a big fucker. So like
Yeah.
I think he was a baseball player, so that made me stoked on him too. And then I
Right.
really like Dirty White Boy, and
Yep.
so I love his voice. There's no reason, but you know what? This album, I tried to get into it like within this year, and I think that song Radio was the only one that I was like, okay, this rips. And
Yep.
the rest of them, I was like,
Yeah.
it's a bit soft, and
Sure.
that's from a guy who loves Autograph and Fate and that kinda shit, so,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. So if you I mean, check out I Must Be Dreaming, the minor hit. If you like that song, venture further, but it's definitely pop metal, but I dig it. So,
nice.
all right, let's go on to your number 7? 7.
Alright, yep, okay, well, here's where I have a monster. I got the Glam Slam Kings of Noise doing "Look What the Cat Dragged In." So, I don't go back to early Poison that much. If I go back these days, I go to Flesh and Blood. I still
Yep.
love that album.
Yep.
And old live concerts. If you ever check out old live footage from, like, the Open Up and Say Odd tour, Brett actually kicked ass live, and he still does, but I'm just
Totally.
saying, like, he really sounded great. So did just like Vince, like, he surprises you in, like, '83 and '85 with how good he was live
Yep.
then. But anyway, but how can you deny this? The album cover was out of control, the videos were infamous, Motley and Poison were, like, huge influences in my life to, like, get me out and be more killer and not be such a pussy. Like it was just big time for me. So I do like the album tracks. I'd say Play Dirty is my choice, but Look What the Cat Dragged In, the song is still my favorite hands down, and it's up there in like my top 3 of Poison songs altogether. So it's high on this list, and it's only because it's been years since I've been like, "Oh, yes,
Yeah.
everything Poison all the time."
Right.
Like, they were one of the first for me, like, the tapes did not leave my tape deck,
Right.
and I know every song through and through from the first big 3. But it's been 20 years since I've been like, "Oh, yes," you know? So anyway, that's why they're up
So
there.
back in the day, the tape didn't leave your tape deck, and the cover of the album didn't leave your nightstand by your jar of, Jergens hand lotion either.
Yeah,
So,
I still chose Brett, though. I don't think CC just the facial features didn't quite do it for
I
me.
don't know, CC was looking that blonde hair. Um, so, I love that if you hadn't chose it, I would have had it near the top of my list. And I'm completely how was the song "Look What the Cat Dragged In" not a single in video?
I know.
How on earth? Now, I mean, obviously, it didn't need a lot of help. It went triple platinum. "Talk Dirty to Me" was fucking blew up. "I Want Action" was a pretty big hit. The first single was "Cry Tough," and that actually did not do very well. And I
Right.
like that song. It's a really good, like it's got a good message, especially for a brand new band. Like, here we are, you gotta cry tough out in the streets to make your dreams happen. But I thought the first single was "Look What the Cat Dragged In," and it's got that kick-ass. I mean, it made our heaviest of the
Oh, yeah.
heavy hair metal songs, that "Look What the Cat Dragged In." So and they had the obligatory ballad. Look at me looking using fucking big words like obligatory and
Apropos.
apropos.
Yeah.
Um, so "I Won't Forget You" was a big hit. So there are, I loved them back in the day. Nowadays, some of the album tracks are a little, like "Go to the Show" was, I mean, it was okay, but now you get "Mama, please let me go to the show."
Yeah.
But anyway, no doubt a monster album, and they were, part of the influence to where now people really started to put on the makeup. It probably started with Motley on Theater of Pain, but Poison in '86. I've always said this. If somebody asked me, "Hey dude, tell me about glam metal or hair metal," the first thing I would say is I'd just say, "Here, look at Poison," and I'd probably give them this album and check this out. To me, Poison defines hair metal, and this album and that look on that album is what, screams hair metal to me.
Absolutely. Good call.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to shit. My number 7.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just talking about this the other day. You have special moments in music. And I said one of my special moments was the first time I heard the riff to Gypsy Road on Cinderella. The first time I heard the song "I Saw Red" by Warrant. Um, and this is a special moment because the first album cassette that I ever bought with my own money was "Honeymoon Suite, The Big Prize." And I
Nice.
remember hearing the song "Feel It Again" on radio. And I was like, oh, it was so ultra catchy. It was
Yeah.
poppy, but it had some kick-ass hard rock in it. And so, like the first album I ever got that my mom bought for me was Michael Jackson Thriller. Don't tell
Mm.
anybody. But so the first album I bought with my own money, The Big Prize. I still really like that album. The song "Bad Attitude"
Yeah.
is a kick-ass rocker. And I still think that the ballad "What Does It Take" is one of the best ballads of the '80s. I mean, it was a I don't know if it was a huge hit. I don't It definitely didn't get, but I might have reached the top 10. So they're a Canadian band. Um, they put out well, shit, they're still doing stuff. They put out an album in '88 called "Racing After Midnight" that was really solid, but it just didn't. I think people were expecting that to be the album that blew them up, that would go platinum. Um, the Big Prize was actually their second release. Their first album in '84 had a kind of a big hit with "New Girl Now." They never quite blew up like they should have, but the Big Prize, special moment in my musical career, comes in at number 7.
They're a very, sing-alongable band. You know what I mean? Like, between New Girl Now and Bad Attitude and Feeling Again, like, Dude, those songs you could do it. You could do it as an amateur, you could do it in your car and not be embarrassed by it. They were great to sing along to. They're so catchy and so fun. They got some random love on the Lethal Weapon soundtrack. I
That's right.
think I mean, they had the song Lethal Weapon, which is a freaking kind of a weird song. Like,
Yeah.
it's tough to make a chorus out of that title. But then one of those was Feel It Again also on the soundtrack? I think one of them was.
I don't think
Maybe.
Feel It Again was.
Okay.
I don't think, but I think it was from '88's Racing After Midnight. Didn't that
Mm,
have the Lethal Weapons? I could be wrong. Shit.
maybe. So
But I
I'm
just
a
I just know the song Lethal Weapon.
yeah, yeah. But great band, great choice. I really had a major kick with that album, this album you're talking about for a very long time, so I know it well.
And they're really on the outskirts of hair metal. They're
Yeah.
probably more in line with like Bryan Adams and shit.
Mhm.
But I love Bryan Adams, so they had enough hair to fit my list. So
Yeah.
all right, let's go on to your number six.
All right, here's where I got Vinnie Vincent Invasion. So, talk about extreme in every aspect, the look was
Oh,
outrageous, the sound was huge, the
yep.
guitar was insane, the songs were amazing. Um, as much as I love Mark Slaughter, I think I prefer Robert Fleischman and Vinnie Vincent, and I love Slaughter. I'm a
Yeah.
huge Slaughter fan, but I don't know what it is. I like Fleischman a lot on this album, and then watching Mark Slaughter do the live stuff, he did it very well. He sounded fairly similar, and it was also odd watching him mimic the voice in the "Boys Are Gonna Rock" video. But that aside, um, "Shoot You Full of Love" and "Do You Want to Make Love," those two songs alone could make this list. On just throw out an album with two songs, that's the Vinnie Vincent magic right there. It's so good. You also can't go wrong with Bobby Rock. He's got like this the
Right.
smaller version of Kane Roberts, but he's still out there. He's still super impressive, in great shape. He's putting out like dietary books and whatnot. He's a picture of health. But this album in general, I think it's kind of chock full of what would be hits, and like the lore surrounding Vinnie Vincent Invasion, you'd think that they were like triple platinum or like six
Right.
times platinum, but they sold
Right.
like 500,000 copies probably. But
Yeah.
anyway, I love this album. It's extreme, it's crazy, it's wild, but it's as catchy as it gets.
I probably have more history with All Systems Go, and probably because Mark Slaughter was on it,
Yeah.
and I was a big Slaughter fan.
Yep.
I don't think I have the CD for I have both Vinnie Vincent
Yeah.
Invasion CDs, but I think that first album, and I probably need to revisit it, but again, and I was like, oh, I don't know, man. That's kind of and
Yeah.
I remember like Gene Simmons saying one of the problems with the Vinnie Vincent is that he always wanted to play like that. And Gene was like, hey, I just want that crunch,
Yep.
you know.
Totally.
So that's the reason that I like so I don't have a lot of thoughts on it. But yeah, I mean those albums are shit in stuck in hair metal lore because
Totally.
of producing Slaughter and having Vinnie Vincent, a key figure in history. So yeah, I mean I see why you put it in there.
Yeah, and it's lot like the Ted Poley, Paul Lane thing. Like, I love All Systems Go, and I couldn't think of Fleischman doing that album. I think
Right.
Mark Slaughter nailed it, and there's some fantastic songs on that album, and no one could have done a better job than Mark Slaughter. So, not knocking the guy at all, because
Right.
I love Slaughter and I love that
Yeah.
album, but this one just stands out.
Sure. Okay. All right, good call. We are on to my number six. And so now I just had kind of a couple on the lighter side of hair metal, more pop metal. But now I'm gonna get back into the fucking ripping, roaring, sleazy, grimy, greasy, go for guts metal with Wasp inside the Electric Circus. Um, I had a period where I kind of got out of Wasp for a while, and I actually think shit. Metal Mike has talked about Wasp. I think he's
Oh,
a
yeah,
big Wasp fan,
big
and
fan.
I started to go. I need to revisit this shit. So I've been listening to a lot of Wasp lately, And I'm like, damn, what the hell was my problem? Because this is where I like metal going. He's
Yeah.
got that rough, gritty voice. The Chris Holmes guitar, I just think even so Chris Holmes does solo shit now. And most people don't know about it. And he sings on it, and his voice kind of sucks, but his guitar tone is always fucking epic. So I even like his solo shit just because of
Nice.
the guitars. So you knew, again, kind of like AC/DC, at least back in the day, you knew what you were going to get with Wasp. Rip roaring guitars, sleazy vocals, and lyrics that always push the envelope. So the title track, Inside the Electric Circus, is awesome. I Don't Need No Doctor. I don't know that any of these songs were hits, but I think I Don't Need No Doctor was a single. I know that 95 Nasty was a single. I really like that song. And then there's a song called Shoot from the Hip. But really, the whole album is solid. It's all just straight ahead sleaze metal. So I'm back on the Wasp bandwagon. You should be too if you haven't checked it out. Because if you like the sleazier side of hair metal, you can't go wrong with Wasp.
So this is what we were talking about. Everybody lightened up in '86. They lightened up their look and their sound, and this is a good mix for Wasp because early Wasp was fucking nuts.
Oh yeah.
Later Wasp was getting progressive-ish
Yep.
concept albums, that whole bit. This is the lane they needed to be in,
Yep.
and you could tell they lightened up, and with that
Yep.
couple some catchy ass shit, and I love 9-5 Nasty. That's my favorite
Yes.
on that album.
Yep. Yeah. A little more straight ahead rock, still sleazy, but it was ultra catchy too.
Mhm.
So yeah, I love this album. So, yep, comes in at number 6. What do you got at number 5?
Here I have Europe doing the final countdown, and this is like the gateway drug into Europe. The first and the song that like everybody has heard being the final countdown. The
Wait,
first
wait,
Europe song.
what song?
Oh, exactly.
I
It's
Yeah,
got this like funny keyboard intro.
yeah,
But anyway, it's everywhere. It's cranked in stadiums still. It's cranked at their concerts without fail. So anyway, other songs, Rock the Night, Cherokee, and I love On the Loose. That's like the ripper on there for me.
right.
Carrie isn't even my on my radar in Europe ballads. When they went on to the next two albums, especially the stuff off Prisoners in Paradise, I think shits on Carrie. I don't mind it, but I don't play it, and if it comes on, I go, "Eh." So, but anyway, the album is pretty killer. It took off huge. It catapulted their career, and it made a total pinup star out of Joey Tempest.
Yes. And I think I've said this before, it catapulted their career, but in a way did it hurt their career
I
that
know,
everybody began expecting huge keyboards. John Norum leaves the band. That they never they go platinum with their next album, but their career kind of, but most bands would sell their soul for a major hit and a triple platinum album, which is what they got in the Final Countdown.
totally, and a
So
cool album cover too. Like how
yeah,
80s was that thing? How perfect for '86 was that album cover?
totally. And I need to frame them. So a lot of the shit that I frame comes out of old Billboard magazines, but I have a couple kick-ass ads for the Final Countdown that I need to get framed and I want to show in here. So
Nice.
and they were not a keyboard band. Even the song, The Final Countdown, if you take the keyboards off, that's a heavy fucking rock song.
Yeah, totally. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, totally.
Right. That galloping guitar, but everybody focuses on the keyboard. So, and I love that song. I coach high school basketball. You still hear it
Totally.
in gymnasiums everywhere. So what an epic track and an epic album. I just sometimes, and I'm sure it's been asked, is the Final Countdown more of a curse or a blessing? And I'm sure it's a little bit of both.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. On to my number 5. Um, so this is the band that's put out a ton of albums. They get a lot of respect. This is the only time you're going to hear me talk about them, and it has nothing to do with what they are mainly known for. The band is Striper. The album is To Hell with the Devil. So I Christianity, hey, so I'll throw it out. I consider myself to be a Christian. I never so any dislike that I have for Striper is not because that they're an overtly Christian band. I know some people don't like that. But hey, some bands are openly satanic. Hey, go be openly Christian. Do whatever your heart says to do with your music, and I feel like Striper does that. So I really love the album To Hell with the Devil. I think they after that, I kind of started to get lost on them. To In God We Trust was a lot more poppy. Then they went with Against the Law and they changed their everything and they kind of
Yeah.
ditched the Christian thing for a while. Now, when I hear some of their new stuff, it sounds a little bit more modern rock. Maybe I haven't given it enough of a chance. But the fucking song To Hell with the Devil fucking rips. Holy shit. I love that guitar. It is epically heavy.
Hmm.
And then there's a couple more songs that I think fall in the pop rock vein. Calling on You and Free, super catchy pop rock, pop metal. And the one the one ballad that I really love, and I really is honestly, I honestly think it's a really cool freaking ballad. So that's always been my favorite Striper album. It's probably the only Striper album that will make one of my lists, but it's epic for 1986, comes in at number five.
Well, Striper's like sneaky hard shit. Like they can turn it up and get like full metal, and you're like,
Yes.
"Whoa, where'd this come from?" Especially in their new stuff, like in the
Yes.
2000s, like almost to a fault. You almost go, maybe you should have opened with something more melodic.
Right.
But that song "Free," that's my choice on the album. That's such a cool chorus, and it's so simple, but they just like echoed it perfectly.
So the songs that I have heard, especially like from the album Reborn,
Yeah,
which I know a lot of people like, but for some reason it comes off to me like more modern metal, like kind of down-tuned guitar. Anyway, but I haven't sat and given it a really honest chance. But when I hear that, sometimes I'm like, here we go, trying to abandon your past. But maybe I do follow Michael Sweet on online, and I love when he tells tales of old Striper
yeah.
stories. A really cool guy. So,
You
um,
know, another thing you mentioned, "Against the Law," that's actually my favorite
is
Stryper
it?
album, and
Sure.
it's Michael Sweet's least favorite. They
Right.
said it was a very trying, weird, difficult time for the band. I
Right.
thought it was a it was my favorite sound by them. It was a little bit toned down. It was
Right.
just kinda straight ahead hard rock,
Yep.
but like 2 Bodies, 1 Mind, 1 Soul, like those kinda songs, like, I think they knocked it out of the park on that and, like, the song Against the Law. Anyway, that's my favorite album,
Yep.
and I gravitate towards that, and it's odd that that's the least favorite of the band members.
That makes me want to go re-listen to it because I just I kind of bailed on it. People were like, they changed. I was like, well, shit. And I wasn't on In God We Trust. I was kind of so I never really cared to listen to Against the Law. I
Yeah,
couldn't tell you when I've listened to it, years. So now I kind of want to check it out. But yeah,
yeah,
for that, at least for To Hell with the Devil, they had a major fan. So
absolutely.
all right, let's go on to your number four.
Okay, here's where I got a controversy here and a controversy with my number 1, but I got Van Halen doing 5150, and, I've heard all the hate. Sammy's not Van Halen, David Lee Roth rules, blah, 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 blah. Trust me, I love the Roth era and I
Yep.
love the Sammy era, and I'm allowed to like both, damn it.
Yep.
But there's nothing wrong with that. They found a new sound with Sammy. The range that Sammy offered, the fellas and Van Halen were obsessed with what they could do musically with Sammy on vocals. Obviously, there was
Totally.
the sky was the limit. Um, they came out the gates hot with 5150, and I'm stoked that they achieved the success right off the bat that they did. You know, it was number one, multi platinum, huge tour. Summer Nights and Best of Both Worlds, again, just like Vinnie Vincent, had there just been two songs on an album, I would have bought it and it probably would have made the list with these two songs on there. Summer
Right.
Nights and Best of Both Worlds are like perfect. But my only complaint was Sammy's dumb look. And I know he's kind of made fun of himself a bit because he got off his tour and he was like, fuck it, chop. And he cut his
Yep.
hair to that like weird poodle thing going on.
Yeah.
And then he would like wear like clown clothes on stage. Like he just looked so out of place in '86. But then he turned it up and then he like on OU 812 and for
Yeah.
Unlawful, like he grew his hair out and he wore like decent looking shit.
Yeah.
But this one I was like, oh, you sound so killer. This is probably your worst look.
Yeah.
But and he makes fun of himself for it. So but anyway, love this album. Love Sammy and love Roth. I'm not gonna decide.
And you know, it's easy to say, "Oh, well, it shouldn't matter how they look." It fucking does. It's part of the presentation. You
Yeah,
know, even grunge bands, that was that was a planned fucking look
there you go.
to wear ripped up jeans and flannel and shit and to look like you didn't care, you know? Like they were probably wearing normal shit and they're like, "Okay, let's get into our stage gear. There's my ripped up jeans."
Yeah.
So um it every genre, every era of music has a style. And yes, I mean, there are, people who just go out on stage and but I've always kind of gone with I want to go to a concert and I want to escape my real life. So
Hmm.
I love when bands are over the top, they have the kick-ass image, like everyone knows
Yeah.
I'm a huge Kiss fan. So, I think the image does matter. But, Sammy, that fucking poodle haircut, man. That was even if you were gonna cut your hair, like, dude, what were you doing with that? So
Yeah, I think he talks about it in his biography, and he's
sure.
not too thrilled with the way that
And
came
and
out.
and and let me say, I fucking love Sammy Hagar. I love the Roth years, but I love Sammy solo. I love Sammy Van Halen, and I've seen Sammy a few times in the 2000s, and that guy vocally is still, he's in his fucking 70s now. He's still a fucking beast on vocals. I mean, holy shit. It's just like he doesn't lose it. I mean, obviously he's going to at some point, but damn, when
Yeah,
I'm seeing him, been top notch.
right.
And I saw Roth a couple years ago open for Kiss, and it
Mm.
was rough, man. It
Oh,
was
yeah,
rough. So,
brutal.
with that being said, all right, we are now on to my number four. Uh, damn, here's an album that I want so much for people to know it. It is so obscure. But when you hear the people involved, so the album is Save Your Prayers by the band Wasted. And Wasted were floating around for a long time in the 80s. They were started by Pete Way, formerly of UFO.
Mhm.
And UFO was a kick-ass shit. I mean, they were in the early 70s. They put out a lot of stuff in the 80s. Pete Way ended up going back. Anyway, Pete Way leaves UFO and goes on to start Wasted. And my favorite album by them is this 86 album where they brought in a little known vocalist named Danny Vaughan, who later went on to be the singer for one of the most epic albums of this genre, Taiketos, Don't Come Easy, and then later Strength in Numbers and other albums. But I am tempted to say that I like Wasted's Save Your Prayers more than I like Taiketo. It's just a little bit more straight up hard rock with Danny Vaughn's kick ass vocals on this album. I love, like, there, and I think there is a semi ballad, but it's just straight up freaking rock,
Mhm.
and it's not even really. there is some pop rock. Like some of it to me, I would describe as just harder rocking Taiketo, or maybe even harder Journey. I feel like Danny Vaughn is somebody who could sing for Journey if he wanted to. Um, so Walls Down. The song Singing to the Night is one of the most sticky, sweet, ultra catchy pop rock songs of the 80s. Heaven Tonight Heaven Tonight was a single. I don't know how that didn't become a fucking hit. And then the song How the West Was Won. That was the only album from Wasted that Danny Vaughn featured on. He went on, like I said, to be in Taiketo. Taiketo should have blown up, but their debut came out in 91, a little bit late to the party. But I love this album. Everyone that follows this show, go check out Wasted, Save Your Prayers.
Yeah, it's like a cult classic, I feel like,
Yes.
and it shouldn't be. It should be way more. And, I totally agree, and I've talked about it before, like, I've never gotten that into Taiketo, and I don't know why. I have their shit, and I've owned it for years and years,
Yes.
and I've never gone full into them, but this album, I've always been a huge fan of, and I didn't really even know it was Danny Vaughan singing for years,
Yeah.
and then I was like, "Oh, well, why do I like that, but not as much Tai" anyway, so he sounds a little different, but it's a great album, so awesome that you put it on there.
Taiketo was, I mean, they rocked, but they were also a lot more acoustic based.
Yeah.
A lot of their songs ventured into the acoustic shit. This this album, I feel like, has much more catchy, straight ahead hard rock guitars, and I feel like it suits his voice. I really like Taiketo, but again, I think if I had to choose between Don't Come Easy and Save Your Prayers, I'd probably go Save Your Prayers. So, all right, with that, let's go on to your number three.
Here's where I got Racer X doing Street Lethal,
Oh,
and
sorry. Hold on. Ridley wants to make an appearance because you're very naughty. We went for a run today.
perfect timing, though.
You pooped in somebody's yard, and I didn't clean it up, but I feel kind of bad because
Eh,
you shouldn't let your dog shit in somebody's yard. You
now
had
then.
poop, didn't you? So, all right, she's a little bit excited. Um, I'll get you a treat here in a second. All right. Okay. You're very nice. You're very popular, and you're famous on YouTube. Okay, go sit down. Okay.
So yeah, here's where I got Racer X doing Street Lethal, and I love this hard hooky shit, and they pulled it off perfectly. I don't know what the difference is between like some of the other hard fast metal that I'm not really into, and the Racer X type of stuff, but they just blend it perfectly. Uh, it's just their balancing of like the melodic hard rock with the speed shit is perfect. So this album's got everything. You got the soaring vocals, Paul Gilbert shredding, that killer city metropolis artwork a la like the LA Guns self-titled with the shield. Like I love the LA city 80s look on there and it's illustrated. It's super killer. But check out Hotter Than Fire and Dangerous Love. Those two songs are like the epitome of what I'm talking about. Like they just combine the stuff that you're like, whoa, those drums are outrageous. The guitar is fast and speedy, and the vocalist's voice goes higher and higher, and but it works. I don't know what it is because, like, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Maiden guy until
Yep.
Fear of the Dark,
Yep.
and then some of the choice cuts that where they went kind of real 80s, and then like I really like Bruce Dickinson's first solo album, but
Yep.
like the galloping operatic speed stuff of Maiden never really spoke to me.
Yep.
And I know this isn't that, but it's the same tempo and it's kind of using the same recipe. But for some reason, I love this and I don't love that.
Maybe I missed it. Who's the vocalist
So that's
on
Jeff
this?
Martin. And
That's
it's
right.
super random because he went on to play drums in like Badlands and like Leather Wolf and stuff. Like he wasn't even like the featured guy, but he's got this amazing voice. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, because. But anyway, they had Scott Travis on drums, so like
Yes.
obviously you're not gonna like. So, but anyway, they had like all stars on this, and they have like really cool live albums that came out in the subsequent years, like '86 and '88, or like '88 and '90 or something like that. So anyway, smoking band.
So I haven't really ventured into this band. they were famous for Paul Gilbert, who
Yeah.
later went on to join Mr. Big. Scott Travis didn't he drummed for Judas Priest.
Oh, yeah, he's
Uh,
still there. Like,
yeah,
and I think they
yeah,
swooped him after, like, the 2nd album.
right. So they were always like known for being a musician's band.
Yeah.
And I think again that scared me off because I was like, oh, freaking all these guys who are virtuosos and are just going to be I'll be honest, I was never a big Mr. Big fan.
And that's a real weird one because Paul Gilbert is, like, this shredder in Racer
Yep.
X, and then he's playing To Be With You and, like,
Yep.
Addicted to That Rush, and you're like, "Same guy?"
Yep.
Like, I he's super talented, they must have told him to tone it down a little bit,
Yep.
but if you look at Racer X, and you never heard their music, you'd put them next to, like, Cinderella and be
Yeah.
like, neons and greens and
Yeah.
bright pinks and huge hair. Like, I'm not sure if they really caked on the makeup,
Yeah.
but their look was as 80s glam outrageous as it gets. But
Right.
their sound didn't produce that.
Yeah. So I need to go revisit that because they were always talked about, especially like I said, musicians would be like, "Oh yeah, Racer X," and they just never, got beyond that like cult status, which I think is
Totally.
what they were back in the
Yeah,
day. So, okay, I'm gonna check that one out.
yeah.
All right. And yeah. Okay. My number 3, okay. Now we're getting into the fucking it's like it's almost hard for me to talk about these albums that this album could have been number 1. Uh, in fact, when I was writing down the songs, I'm like, "Fuck, what songs should I not write down? I
And
don't wanna list all the songs." God dang it. If Tesla's Mechanical Resonance just holds a special fucking place in my heart. I worship this album. I could never say enough about it. How in the world it only went platinum is just beyond me. I could have like when I talked about them in an earlier episode at some point. I was going through sales figures, and I honestly was expecting to see this album at 3 or 4 times platinum. I was sure of it. No, fucking platinum.
wow.
Modern day cowboy. That opening guitar riff, if that doesn't get your fucking heart jumping, I don't know. And I love that song.
Yeah.
Kick ass lyrics, East versus West. I love the cowboy image that was brought. There's going to be another band that's going to show up that had some cowboy imagery in some of their songs. Um, Little Susie, shit. Most people still don't know that that's a cover song. Was a cover song. Rock Me to the Top. Coming at You Live. I love the song Getting Better. It starts off with this
Yep.
most epic acoustic intro. Jeez, I love when they do that. They did it again, like on the intro to Love Song. They did it shit. Um, they did another acoustic intro. Shit,
Little
was
Susie.
to Little Susie, to Little Susie. So this album is all killer, no filler. I worship it. I almost have goosebumps right now talking about it. I can still throw this on and not be like, okay, yeah, I loved it back in the day. I still love it now. And so it's my number 3, and it could be number 1.
Yeah, man. That's such a good call by you, and this very well could have been my number 1 as well. I love this album, and I'm actually pretty shocked that it did just go platinum because when when they jumped on the Hysteria tour,
Yes.
they went straight to the top, and I thought for sure this was gonna be 3 times platinum, but yeah, songs like Getting Better, dude, it's so money, and I've always kinda correlated, Youth Gone Wild and Modern Day Cowboy as, like, they're they're the giant first album hits, and it really defines who they are, but I
Yep.
never turn it off. I
Yeah.
never turn those
No.
songs both those songs off ever,
No.
and, they just continue to impress me to this day, and Little Susie, I that's just one of my favorites of all time.
But so my son is getting into a rap phase. He fucking loves Kanye West for some reason. but he, like, when we get to, if we're listening to music, he'll be like Tesla. He loves the song Little Susie. Now,
Nice.
I it didn't have Getting Better had ballad-esque moments. It didn't have a big ballad like they did with Love Song on the Great Radio Controversy. If they had had that, maybe it goes 2, 3 times platinum.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, a ass kicking one of the best hard rock albums of the 80s, in my opinion.
And their look wasn't very 86, you
Bro,
know? There
totally.
wasn't there wasn't a lick of makeup, they were in denim.
Yep.
Like, so it's like Skid Row again, like, some of the earlier photos, they kinda looked a little glammy,
Right.
but when they really came out, there was nothing about it that was very
Yep.
glam.
And that took balls to say, you know what, we're not going to try and be, Bon Jovi or Motley Crue or whatever, even like Rats. They were like, fuck, we were, and I totally respected that. I was also like, what the fuck are you doing? Everybody's hair metal now.
Yeah,
Everybody should be wearing makeup.
I
But
know.
now you look back and Tesla just never strayed, and everybody should respect them for being true to what they were.
Do you remember their name before they were called Tesla?
Don't tell me. Hold on. What I know. What is it?
City Kid.
Yes, City Kid.
I love that name. It's so, like,
City Kid.
naive and, like, it's so innocent and great, like, it's perfect, like, they were from Sacramento, like, just, like, 4 hours north of me, and City Kid, I was like, "Okay, it woulda never worked on the grand scale."
Right.
What a killer name, like
And I have seen Tesla so many times in concert, and they are always fucking awesome.
Absolutely. Cool.
Okay, we're on to your number 2.
Okay, big one for me. Here's where I got Rat doing Dancing Undercover. And this is Rat hitting their stride for me. They turned their fashion rock, which they used to be called of the early 80s, or the early days into this Hollywood look. And like this album cover, although basic, I think it's perfect for 86, and I think it's perfect for Rat. They all look killer, and they kind of like defined what Hollywood rippers need to look like. And I don't give a shit that I'm talking about the look before I talk about the music because it's important here. But I don't think people loved the the production on this one. It's a little more raw than the previous two. I admit it might even benefit from a remaster, but like those are kind of more like on the album tracks. I think the hits on this one, the production was just fine. The album tracks could have stood to be beefed up a bit. But when I first got into Rat, it was the tape version. I had like a taped version of Out of the Cellar, and then I had 81 to 91.
Yep.
And honestly, besides like the obvious early Rat hits, I really gravitated towards the songs that were on the 81 to 91 that were on this album. And I listened to those probably the most. And this is like the perfect Stephen Piercy album. It's in his wheelhouse the entire time. And I still love to crank this thing. Um, it probably ranks as like maybe number 3 or 4 still though in my
Yeah.
Rat love
Yep.
because I think Invasion, Out of the Cellar, and Detonator are so good. This one is maybe ahead of one of those, but it's right there. So what a cool era for Rat.
I love Rat in the 80s. And you love Rat too because you like eating rats. Um and so this would be my number 4. But I love those 4 albums. I go Rat, I go Invasion, I go Detonator, I go Dancing Undercover, and then
Yeah,
Reach for the Sky. I do like Reach for the Sky. It had a
yeah,
little bit more filler than I like, but still. And I love that cover. Like, damn it, I want to get a shirt with
yeah.
that cover on it. So, anyway, yeah, I just got the Rat vinyl box set not too long ago,
Wow.
and I'm ooh. So, yeah, I'm just and I don't know if so. I watched some Stephen Piercy live stuff. His is another voice that is a little iffy live, but I love him on record. I love that grit and
Yeah,
that, I don't know, it just his voice works for me on record. So yeah, great call. If you hadn't had it, I would have had it up there.
nice.
All right, we are on to my number two. And man, uh, I mean, this, if there's an album that almost everybody had at some point in the 80s, it's this album. It's one of the few rock albums to go 10 times platinum. Def Leppard did it twice, and Bon Jovi did it once with Slippery When Wet. But when I think of huge albums, I tend to always think of Slippery. It just seemed like that thing was everywhere,
Mhm.
even though definitely, I'm still Pyromania is my jam. Hysteria is, I still really like Hysteria, but Slippery was just, here's Bon Jovi on their third album. They have a hit with Runaway on their debut. The follow-up, 7,800 Degrees Fahrenheit, sells a few 100,000 copies, but no hits, maybe a couple minor hits. And then for some reason, they blow up. They go up to Canada and record this album with Bruce Fairbairn. I think they had some help in the songwriting with Desmond Child, who was Mr. Hitmaker in the 80s. And I mean, you go through Living on a Prayer, like, boom. You Give Love a Bad Name, Wild in the Streets, Wanted Dead or Alive. And I will go on record saying that Wanted Dead or Alive is probably my favorite Bon Jovi song of all time. I
Nice.
love that wintry guitar intro that Richie Sambora does. I love those lyrics about, like, hey, the highs and lows of the road. It may be the most epic video in rock history. So I love that kind of shit. Uh, almost any song on this album, except for Social Disease. Social Disease sucks. Okay, I don't know what the fuck that was doing. There was the song Edge of a Broken Heart, which never made it on an album. It was on a unreleased songs album. That should have been in there instead of Social Disease. Social Disease is a shit show. But anyway, Bon Jovi has lost me in recent years, but damn it, I was fully on board for Slippery When Wet.
Oh yeah, I don't think anybody wasn't. I will admit that I had several years where I ignored it and didn't want to hear "Living on a Prayer" anymore.
Oh yeah, sure.
But but in recent times, due to the documentary,
Yes.
it did its job and it totally reinvigorated my appreciation for this album and the songwriting and the anthemic writing and the so there's a part where they have just John's vocals. And then I listened to it on YouTube and it's just him singing Living on a Prayer.
Yep.
And you go, wow, the dude really had an amazing voice. And he post solo when they go up a key and it's like, ooh, that's tough to do.
Oh
And
yeah.
he nails it
Yep.
obviously really well. And I've always said I think I prefer Richie Sambora's voice, to be honest. I think he's got such a strong voice that like, I love Stranger in This Town just
Yeah.
because it was him singing. It was way too country, but it was a good album, had solid songs, but,
Mhm.
his voice, like I said, he could sing the phone book and I'd be down. But this album in recent times, I've again gotten into, and Let It Rock and Raise Your Hands are my sleepers that I go to almost every time on this album, and those 2 alone, I'd buy it for those.
I don't know why Raise Your Hands wasn't a single. Like that is a song that should be playing in sports arenas
Yeah.
every fucking night. Like it just, raise your hand. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the ultimate rock anthem, and it wasn't even a single.
I mean, it doesn't get much more John Bon Jovi than the verse in "To Raise Your Hands." Like, it's so 86 Jovi, it's insane. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah. And now I fucking forgot what I was gonna say. I was gonna say it's not like they needed more singles. I mean, the
I know.
album sold fucking 12 million copies, but that song, and that was, I mean, Bon Jovi gets associated with light rock, and probably rightfully so. They had a full-time, keyboard player, David Bryan. A lot of bands were shying away from keyboards, but Raise Your Hands was an opportunity to say, hey, look, we fucking rock too. And that opening guitar riff, anyway, I love that album. I just thought that was something that they missed out on. But you are right, that documentary was so good, and it just made me appreciate, even those first couple albums that I, are maybe a little less well known, but I went and revisited those as well just because of the documentary.
Yeah, me too.
So, all right, that's my number two. Probably everybody knows what's going to be my number one, but anyway, we're on to our number ones. Ryan, what do you got?
Okay, well, Van Halen was controversial. This one might be more controversial, and here's where I got Judas Priest doing Turbo. All right. So people are gonna hang me probably for this one because Priest Turbo isn't exactly the most manly version of Priest, but
I got
I
to be
love
honest, I'm shocked right now.
really? All right. Well, I love this version of Priest. They didn't do a damn thing wrong from 80 to 91 in my eyes. So
Yep,
I love the leather clad guys. I love the ram it down and painkiller, like crazy hardness.
yep,
Again, it's the song Painkiller is faster than any Maiden song, and I'm not a big fan of that, but I love Painkiller. So I don't
yep.
know what's wrong with me, but I love it. So anyway, they're the the Racer X analogy. Again, it's thrashy shit, but anyway, Halford, what I where I think I may have solved my riddle for why I love Priest and they're way harder than most of the shit I like is because Halford always manages to slide in those metal ripping harmonies
Yep.
and just these little poppy melodies into like a full metal song. And
Yeah.
so you're ripping along the way. Even on the new album, like the newer albums like Firepower, you're
Mhm.
like, okay, this is like hard shit. And then he'll come in with like some kind of like poppy bridge. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? I'm like, that's why I love this shit. But anyway, this album was like way more hard rock than heavy metal.
Yep.
Obviously, you got like Locked In, Private Property, Parental Guidance, Turbo Lover. Like Private Property and Parental Guidance, those choruses are arena sing along huge.
Totally.
Love it. But they were peaking in the female demographic on this one too. You could tell by that heavy metal parking lot video, and they had because they had Dokken opening. That probably helped the female attraction
Yep.
there. They were like the cute mid 80s band that was coming around. And Priest's image, just like I said at the beginning, super light compared to what they always had looked like, and they never looked like again. Um, that 87 live video is fucking awesome. And they play like all the killer songs off of
Yes.
Turbo, and I love it. And it's a good album, and it's probably my favorite Priest album. Just gonna say it.
Yep. No, hey, I'm right with you. I love the poppier side of Priest.
Yeah.
I love Devil's Child, Parental Guidance, Living After Midnight. You've got another thing coming. You've got another thing coming is pretty heavy, but it also is just ultra catchy.
Yeah.
Turbo Lover.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's my Judas Priest wheelhouse. Now, like the song Painkiller,
Yeah.
to me, that's a little freaking heavier than what I'd venture into. So I probably haven't listened to that album in forever because that song kind of scared me in a way. I'm like, holy shit, Judas Priest is trying to rip my balls off. So but Turb, this album was right into where I was like, all right, hey, a little bit poppier, a little bit more hard rock, and I was went along for the ride there, so I'm right with you. But I am shocked that that's your number one
Yeah.
because I just did not see that coming. I remember, we exchanged lists because I don't want to double up, but I was thinking that it would probably be Poison or something. But
Yeah.
okay,
This
hey,
is
I'm
it.
I'm I'm
And I'm
up for
wondering
some shocks.
when I referred to Halford sliding something in, I hope you didn't think I was going anywhere with that. I was talking about melodies, okay?
Okay. Yep. I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were. Um, there's so many other things I was gonna say, but I'm like, hey, I fucking love Judas Priest, so I'm just gonna let it go. And hey, be who, do whatever you want to do. All right, my number one. I I love I love this band and I love this album. Some of my favorite songs in the history of hair metal are on this album. This album might have the best opening three-track run of songs of any album in history, in my opinion. It's Cinderella with Night Songs. Let's see what else. There you go. Night
Yeah.
Songs, World Tour 86. The opening three songs on this album are Night Songs, Shake Me, and Nobody's Fool. Holy fuck. And I didn't know until freaking years later. I thought the song Night Songs was a single. It was not. It never got a video. And that might be my favorite song on the fucking album. I love that dark kind of spooky. It's even got like wolves howling in the intro. It's not quite a ballad, but it's not like a heavy rock song. It is just doom and gloom for some reason, but so catchy. Jeez, I love that song. That is a never skipper to me. Shake Me is freaking just so ultra catchy and kick-ass guitar riffs. Somebody Save Me, kind of the same thing. Shake Me, Somebody Save Me, like just really up tempo, four to the floor hard rock. Then Nobody's Fool was a kind of a ballad, but not anywhere close to the typical ballad that you were getting from other. This is not I Won't Forget You. This is not Oh Babe, I Love You. I Miss You. Nobody's Fool was just something different, something so original. And I mean, I could list all the songs. I mean, Push Push, I love. Once Around the Ride is just raging hard rock, but the whole album is great. And me and you have talked about our love for like those guys with gritty rock vocals, AC/DC. But Tom Kiefer on this album, that grisly growl and scream that he gets, just that is my epitome of a rock voice that I freaking love. I mean, I like the pretty singers too, but I'm a Tom Kiefer voice kind of guy. Cinderella Night Songs, one of my favorite albums of this genre, comes in at number one.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, we do exchange lists. This absolutely been would have been way high on my list as well.
Yes.
The Push Push, I've said it before, like I don't know what it is about that song, but I fucking love that song. That's
Oh yeah,
probably my
me
favorite on
too.
the album. I don't know why. I mean, like between Somebody Save Me, Shake Me, all that shit, like Push Push is just so killer. But I saw Cinderella with Firehouse and Quiet Riot and Poison
Yes.
in like I don't know early 2000s, and they opened with Night Songs, and I really ignored it. I don't know how I always ignored it since it kicked off the album. I
Yep.
don't know how I ignored it for so many years. It was kind of overshadowed, and I saw him open with it, and I was like, "What are they doing opening with this song?" And I was like, "Oh, I get it now.
Yes.
It's just like this slow chugging killer, smoky this and that." And I was like, it builds and it's ballsy and it's dude, awesome opener.
And it's got one of the coolest lines. I need a shot of gasoline. I'm doing
Uh-huh.
116. I get so hot I see steam. Oh fuck, man. Anyway, I saw that tour. I think it was 2002. I
Okay.
saw it in Bismarck, North Dakota. And speaking, so that's off topic, but Ricky Rocket just posted something about Poison touring in
Oh,
2025. They should headline and they should do another. They did those a lot in the early 2000s. They'd
mhm.
get three or four cool 80s rock bands, Cinderella, they had Warrant, all these, and do a tour like that. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't go wrong. And the album went triple platinum. So did the follow-up. So, now Tom Kiefer's on his own, but uh,
Yeah.
Jeff LaBar is gone. But it would be cool to see Cinderella reform and do like a really cool tour with a band like Poison. But anyway, that
Yeah.
comes in at number one, and I will go to my grave saying it's easily in my top 10 hair metal albums of all time.
Awesome.
So, hey, do you want to give some honorable mentions?
Yeah, sure. I got a few.
Yeah,
I
let's
got
go.
Eat 'Em and Smile, David Lee Roth, but I got
Yep.
uh what is it? Sonrisa Salvaje, the Spanish version. Have you ever heard that?
Of what the fuck?
Dude, David Lee Roth did
Oh,
Eat 'Em and Smile, Spanish, all Spanish. It's called Sonrisa Salvaje. And it's him singing every song on Eat 'Em and Smile in Spanish. And it's freaking amazing. It's so killer to hear it. It's more of a joke, but check it out. I had Jovi, I had Jovi, of course. A band called Sword. Sword had the singer that went on to be Saints and Sinners, lead singer, who's amazing.
yes.
Um, Queensryche, Fifth Angel, Honeymoon Suite, Black and Blue, Dirty Looks. They had like their first one in this year, right?
Yes, and I don't think it was like a national release. It wasn't like a major label, but yes, I think it was called In Your Face.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
It was a little more raw, but yeah.
yes.
Band called Hawk. I don't know if you remember that band Hawk. They had Doug Marks, and
He
you
was
probably
always in all the old hair metal magazines for
exactly.
his guitar techniques video.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I figured you'd know that because every magazine it was Metal Method, I think what it was
Metal
called.
Method, yep.
Yeah. Treat, band called Treat. They were like a Fate type band where, they're I think
Yep.
Swedish. But yeah, there was a few, but yeah, they're
Yep.
all
Okay.
the heavy hitters this year.
I had a Slave Raider Take the World by Storm. They're from Minneapolis, kind of a minor hit on
Yeah.
on that album called Make Some Noise. Um, Lizzie Borden, Menace to Society, like I mentioned, Killer Dwarfs. London, Don't Cry Wolf. If you remember London, where basically everybody that ever left that band, like Nikki Sixx, uh, Fred Coury, I think was in that band. So they were featured in that documentary.
Yeah.
The hell's that called?
Oh, the decline of Western
The-
civilization.
Part two, the metal years.
Yeah.
Loudness, Lightning Strikes, and then
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
a couple pop albums. Survivor, When Seconds Count. I love Survivor.
Yeah.
And so I think Survivor almost fits into hair metal. And then this one, I knew I wasn't going to put it in, but I just wanted to mention it. 38 Special,
Mhm.
Strength in Numbers. I like that kind of 80s pop rock.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
In
not
in
hair
that
metal.
vein, check out a band called Haywire. You ever heard of them?
Haywire, I've heard that name.
Yeah, if you're into the Survivor 38 special stuff,
Yes.
they had a string of mid-80s albums like this that fit that, like, it's not hair metal.
Yep.
It's a cross between, like, Bryan Adams' Honeymoon Suites and
Yep.
Survivor, you know? And, like, sprinkle in a little Duran Duran.
Yeah.
But it works, they got some good guitar and stuff, but,
Yeah.
yeah, check out Haywire for this year.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, tell us what we missed. Okay, there's got to be some other albums that we didn't throw in there. Tell us where we fucked up. We probably didn't because we are fucking gurus of hair metal. I'm guru number one. That's guru number two. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show, brother.
Thank you, it's always great.
Yes. Hey, like I said, like, subscribe, comment, become a member. I know I say this all the time. I really do appreciate people who spend any part of their day choosing to watch one of my videos, one of our videos. Like genuinely, it means a lot to me. So until the next video comes out, my name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. Take care.